Hello there. I have been asked by Debbie, who is you guys' biggest ally. She keeps making me do things that I really don't feel like doing, but I'm going to do this just for you and Debbie to get her off my back.
Thank you,
Sometimes
Ron.
she's really a pain in the keister, to be honest with you. All right, look, I'm going to do the agreements to buy and the agreements to sell right out of the Control Without Ownership manual. I'm taking them right out of the manual, the same manual that you can get by calling this office, or that you have if you already have it. So everything that I'm going to show you here is in here. Now, I'm not going to go through the agreements word for word. I'm just going to show you which agreements you need. Everything in this manual is on the Gold Club site under Resources, under Control Without Ownership. You just got to figure out when to use what, and honestly, if you'll take time to actually get into this course and read it, there's even a section in here that's when to use what agreement. So I don't know how much easier to make it, but I'm going to go through them right here. Look, starts with agreements to buy. See what that says? Agreements to buy. Very, very simple. Now, this is assuming you're going to buy with a lease purchase only, because that's what this whole course is about. Look, there's a page that says preparing an agreement right there. And now we get into a letter of intent. Now, this letter of intent is nothing more than here's what I intend to do if you like it, that you send to the seller, and the seller says, okay, I like it, then you can take them an agreement. To be honest with you, I don't use this. I only use this if the seller just insists that they want you to send them something. Okay, and I can tell you right now, normally means, please get off my telephone, and I don't know how else to politely get rid of you, is normally what that means. Frankly, if they want you to send them something, then you should say, well, listen, is what I said of interest to you? And if it is, let me just come out and answer your questions, and I'll bring the agreement with me. And if they don't want to do that, they don't have the interest anyway. But if you want to use it, there's a letter of intent right in here. All you got to do is fill in the blanks for your property, and it's already done. And every one of these agreements that are in here, it's filled out, so you can look at a filled out version of them. You'll always need an authorization to release, regardless of what kind of your deal you're doing, if there's an underlying debt on it. Because this gives you permission to get their bank to send you the information on the loan. We don't do that on axe deals. We don't even do it on lease purchase deals. But it's nice to have it in your file anyway. And it just requires one signature from husband or wife and one social security number. Here's a general release that your attorney is going to get your seller to sign at the time you install your tenant buyer. This is a beauty. This thing releases you from anything and everything that has to do with that property and that seller. I want you to get that signed and make sure it's in your file. All right, here's my CYA letter, and this is a beauty. It says seller acknowledgments. This also gets signed with your attorney when your buyer is installed, and the attorney is finalizing the documents he needs to get the seller to sign. We put the buyer first. We get a contract from the seller, then we find the buyer, then we know we got a deal. So then we put the attorney in touch with our seller while he's doing all the documentation to prepare for the buyer to come in and sign it as well. This is one of the things I want the seller to sign. It's the CYA letter. Your attorney will love it. And it clearly discloses that you're not doing anything funky, and you've disclosed everything that you need to disclose to the seller. And then the next agreement in here is the lease option agreement that you will use if you intend to stay in the deal. It's the one in the front of the manual. This is the one you'll use only if you're going to do a sandwich lease. If I'm going to do an axe deal and assign my contract, this is not the one I want to use, which is why I put right at the top of the agreement, use this when you intend to lease and sublease. Do not use if you intend to assign. Get signed in home or in front of your attorney. See, it's right up there. Now, of course, that won't be on your agreement that's on your Gold Club site. That's instructions to you. So that's the document that we get signed in the seller's home if we intend to stay in the deal, because it gives you more rights as the buyer than the one where you're installing a tenant buyer in the property. So that is the agreement that you'll need to get signed on the front end with the seller on a lease purchase deal, assuming that you are going to stay in the deal. And if you're not going to stay in the deal, let's go right here to the back of the book, and let's finish this up with the agreements to sell. Look here, I'm going to take them right out of the book. See, it says agreement to sell. All right, right there. Okay, and it starts with this agreement that's got this big old table of contents on it. When you see the table of contents, remember, this is to install a lease option tenant buyer in the house. Now, I use the same agreement whether I intend to install one that I'm going to assign my contract to, or I'm going to install one on a house that I intend to keep. So this same agreement would be used if I'm sandwich leasing it and staying in the middle, or if I'm assigning it to an axe buyer. This agreement is the agreement that I install tenant buyers with to protect the seller. So if I'm assigning my contract, I want to protect the seller. If I'm staying in it, I want to protect me, because I in fact am the seller. So this is the agreement we'll use. In the course, it's all filled out, and on the Gold Club site, it's all filled out as well, and that's the entire agreement right there. And frankly, if you sit down and read this thing, you'll find that it's not that difficult to understand. It's written in layman's language. You'll also need a release signed by your buyer when you install the tenant buyer. That's for your attorney to get signed. And you'll also need, here's the release. It's the exact same release that you have when you're buying, except of course buyer and seller in inverted, because remember, it's you that's getting the release, so now your buyer is releasing you. Previously your seller was releasing you. This is only on an axe deal. You will not get this signed if you're doing a sandwich lease, because the seller nor the buyer is releasing you. You're staying in the deal. So you don't need this except on an axe deal. Now your assignment, of course, this only applies to an axe deal as well. This is assigning the contract that you got from your seller to your buyer. This one document does that. This is for your attorney to prepare and get your buyer to sign, acknowledging that they're accepting your assignment. And that's all there is. And all of these documents on the selling side, your attorney's going to do anyway, guys. You're not going to, well, what we do is we fill in the blanks. Then we email it to the attorney, and then he finishes up whatever he wants in the package and emails it back to us, and we okay it, make sure there's no mistakes, and then we say, okay, they're usable. If you don't want to do that, he can fill in the blanks. And of course, you got to tell him the term and the monthly payment and the buyer's name and all that stuff, and then they'll just fill in the blanks. So it's not that complicated. You guys need to quit worrying about these agreements. There's not that much to them. I mean, they're in layman's language. And just for the record, what's the worst can happen if you screw them up? And you will. Nobody will die. You unscrew them, that's all. If it's a mistake big enough for the attorney to correct, he'll tell you at the closing. And most of the time, it just doesn't matter anyway. The truth is, all agreements come down to intent. And anytime that the seller or the buyer wants to back out on you early in the game, they're going to get out anyway, regardless of what you do here. And again, that's why I tell you to use attorneys. Let them protect you, and the buyer's paying them. Quit worrying about agreements. If you'll get this course, they're all right in there when it comes to control without ownership. I don't know how to make it any simpler than that. So if you, and by the way, guys, just honestly, if you're trying to do an axe deal or a sandwich lease and you don't have this course, come on, who are you kidding? Your chances of getting through one of those things and not screwing it up are slim to none. No matter what you do, you got to get the minimum basic training to get it done. And this is the basic training. Now this is a $997 course you can get anytime you want it global for $1,000. If you want to learn this business and you don't want to pay $1,000, good luck. I promise you, you're going to pay 20, 30, 40 times that trying to figure it out on your own. So if you're in the axe game, you got to have this. If you're not, you stand a little chance of doing it without that. And I'm not trying to sell the course here. I'm just telling you reality. If you don't have the tools, how do you ever expect to build a house? All right. I hope that helps. And I hope that gets Debbie off my back as well.
For a little while.
Okay, good.
All right.